Well, Regal Trophy Day here at Wilderspool as David Hobbs leads his team out onto the park. And the team news this afternoon, just one or two changes from the team from Castleford last week. But first of all, let's get the Warrington team out of the way. Number 1's Rob Myler. Number 2's Neil Kenyon. Number 3, Alan Bateman. Number 4's Tony Thornley. Number 5, Mark Forster. 6, Kelly Shelford. And number 7, Greg Mackey. Number 8, Gary Chambers. Number 9, Dwayne Mann. 10, Gary Tees. 11, Gary Sanderson. Number 12, Neil Harmon. And at number 13, Paul Cullen. Number 14 is Kevin Ellis. And at number 15, Paul Derbyshire. And Bradford's team this afternoon. Number 1, Roger Simpson. Number 2, Brimmer Kebby, coming back after that lengthy injury layoff. Number 3 is Tony Marchant. Number 4, Daryl Shelford. Number 5, Tony Anderson. Number 6 is Dave Watson. Number 7, Neil Summers. Number 8, David Hobbs. 9's Brian Noble. Number 10, John Hamer. Big Roy Powell at number 11. Carl Fairbank, 12. And at number 13, Dave Heron. Number 14's Trevor Clark. 15's Paul Medley. And the man in the middle this afternoon, Mr. Jim Smith from Halifax. And of course the Regal Trophy culminated in that final early part of January, and one that Peter Fox would dearly love to win. So a little bit of a poor afternoon here at Wilderspool. The pitch very, very heavy. Had a little walk on it earlier on as Warrington start this game with Shelford getting the ball underway, and Dave Watson there coming back on the ball, and Watson with number 6 on his back, but will be playing at scrum half this afternoon as Roy Powell takes the drive up. It's good driving by Big Roy. And Northern now with the ball out there is David Hobbs. Dave Heron just going on that little bit of a dummy run there, but Hobbs making a good 5-10 yards. Dave Watson onto Carl Fairbanks. Fairbank looks to go through, and Warrington missing the tackling machine. Neil Summers with a good kick back, and that touched the player's hands, but referee Jim Smith saying no knock on there as Bradford with Carl Fairbank pin the Warrington fullback down. So Warrington coming away now with Mark Forster going across the park, but Roy Powell across there very, very quickly. And the first half hour of this game, as was the match previously, it's going to be a good forward game. Pitch very, very heavy, as we said before, as Bradford containing Warrington at the moment in their own half as Kelly Shelford puts the ball over the top. That's a good ball, making Roger Simpson back and chase, but Simpson straightening up, looks to try and get out of one, but finally brought down just outside his own 25. Kebby from the acting halfback. First touch of the ball there for Brimmer this afternoon. Hamer taking the drive up. It's a good hit there by Warrington on John Hamer as Norton switched the ball blind with Carl Fairbank. Fairbank just dipping the shoulder there. So Watson with the Heron with the ball onto Roy Powell, and Powell there just bobbling about there the ball as Powell looked to overrun as Neil Summers again, and Jim Smith straight away catches 3 Warrington players offside, and of course this new 10-yard rule now that the players have to be 10 yards at that play of the ball. So first penalty to Bradford Northern, and Neil Summers to find a good touch. That's a good kick by Neil. Back inside the Warrington half of the field. So 6 tackles now for Bradford Northern. John Hamer on the burst through. Little switch there of the players as Tony Marchant came dropping off, but Northern with Watson. Watson onto Roy Powell, and Dave Watson taking that first receiver mantle as David Hobbs. Hobbs straightening up. That's a good tackle on Hobbs. The gap looked to have opened up there, but a good tackle on David Hobbs. So Northern with Watson. Heron needs a good long ball out. It's out to Shelford, but Shelford just losing his footing there. Summers with a signal that the ball's going up in the air. That's a good high ball by Neil Summers. Carl Fairbank there. running into the man. And straight away it looks like Carl Fairbank in a little bit of trouble here with Smith. And Carl Fairbank getting 10 minutes there in the sin bin. A little bit silly there. Carl was up very, very quickly. The ball was hanging and it looks as though Fairbank just lost his footing and flattened the Warrington fullback. So Bradford down to 12 men. We played some 5 minutes here. And the Warrington fullback there just receiving attention from the physio. So Bradford, yeah, with the switch on this afternoon, although Tony Anderson's got 5 on his back, he's playing in the right wing position. Kebby on the left hand side. Peter Fox just, when the numbers came up, decided that Anderson would be better on this right hand wing. Now the Warrington player still on the ground there. And the news on Derek Fox, all being well, he will be back next week. Peter didn't really want to risk him today. Let that injury clear up so that Derek's going to be fit for the run up to Christmas, and of course a very, very difficult January for Bradford Northern. Wigan twice in the new year. So quite a lengthy stoppage here for that injury. And obviously the players wanting to get on with it. Very, very cold afternoon here at Wilderspool as Kelly Shelford just hooks the ball, but makes about 5 yards there, but safely finds touch. So Warrington come again with the big forwards. That's Gary Chambers, the number 8 there, and Bradford Northern caught offside, and Dave Watson straight away said something to Jim Smith and gets another 10 yards. So that's bringing Warrington up to the halfway line. Dave Watson there just saying to Jim Smith he was on that 10-yard mark, but so Shelford gets the ball safely into the touch, into the stand today. So 6 more tackles now as Gary Tees taking the drive up, Tees straightening up there, but Brian Noble wrapping himself round his legs as Warrington come again with number 12 Neil Harmon. Been out of the team quite a while, but Warrington now with the runners coming. That's a nice little switch, but good spotting there by Roy Powell. But Warrington just 10 yards from the Bradford Northern line as Chambers coming again. Chambers looking for somebody off the shoulder. That's 4 tackles now as Warrington. Shelford looking to, Dwayne Mann, it was the hooker, looking to go on his own, but that's the 5th and last tackle now as Shelford's going to put that little dribble through, but that's well blocked with the feet there by Neil Summers. Summers did well there just to put a foot on that ball. So Bradford in possession now as Shelford going up the short side. That's good strong running by Daryl Shelford. Good yardage made there. That's going to save the forwards a little bit of work as Northern come again with Roy Powell at full tilt, but Powell's well spotted there. Northern with that little run round again as John Hamer straightens up. Hamer in at the Warrington defence. And a very, very muddy patch there. That's a nice ball laid off there. Out to Tony Marchant, but Marchant propping there, electing to go inside and falling to the tackle of Kelly Shelford as Dave Watson puts the boot to the ball over the top, but the winger well back there, Neil Kenyon, as Kenyon sets off, gets away from 1, gets away from 2. That's good running by Kenyon and good supporting play there by Warrington. 2 tacklers being missed, and Jim Smith once again giving a penalty there against Roy Powell for laying on. So Wyres having the benefit of the penalty so far in this first half. 3 against Bradford Northern now to just that 1. And Warrington back in possession, back inside the Bradford half now as Chambers on the drive again, but Roy Powell in at the tackle, supported there by Dave Heron. Mackey on the ball. Mackey gets the ball out to Tees, but Tees up as far as the Northern 25 as Mackey again. Long ball out to Shelford. Shelford finding a good gap. That's good running by Shelford, but a good tackle there by Roger Simpson. Shelford saw the gap as Warrington looked to get the ball out. That's a good ball out. And surely that's a knock on. That ball was knocked forward then as the player went for it, and referee Jim Smith spotting that, and straight away a Warrington player once again. And Tony Anderson racing in from the wing there. That's good quick thinking by Anderson. Everybody was arguing with the referee as Tony Anderson shot in from the wing there to try and make some inroads up the field. So it's Bradford back in possession with David Hobbs, but Hobbs there just dipping the shoulder and going to the tackle, and a penalty there for laying on. David Hobbs there just man the referee a little bit, kicking the legs out to try and get up, but the penalty awarded to Bradford Northern against Gary Tees for laying on at the tackle. So Neil Summers to pop the ball into touch. That's a good kick, that safely finds touch, makes 10 yards. Oh, Brian Noble from the acting halfback gets the ball out to Watson, on to Roy Powell, but Warrington cover coming up very quickly. Powell there and offside. That was good thinking there by Roy Powell. He hadn't got the man facing him, played the ball to himself, and the Warrington number 11 there, Gary Sanderson, adjudged to be offside, so a further chance for Bradford to work the way towards that Warrington line as Neil Summers finds a good touch just outside the Warrington 25. And a different little ploy here today. Instead of Brian Noble taking that tap from the resulting free kick, Neil Summers, so we're going to see the run round here. David Hobbs electing to go on his own. Little dummy soul there, but the cover started to go across, but Warrington with Dwayne Mann. That's good tackling by Dwayne Mann. Been very, very busy in the opening 10 minutes of this game as Watson lays a nice ball off to Roy Powell. That's once again that little run round pass, the little flip passes. Brian Noble from the acting halfback. Noble looked as though he got out of the clutches, so Norton within 10 yards of that Warrington line. Heron switches the ball to Neil Summers. Summers knocks one off, but finally into the cover there. He's brought down just a couple of yards short. That's a good ball out. Watson on the ball, got the return pass there, and Watson trying to wriggle out, but referee there signalling the hand over there, the sixth tackle, and Watson in, hooked the ball there. That's good play by Dave Watson, sloppy play of the ball, so Bradford back in possession now. Heron gets a good ball out, gives the ball to Kebby. That ball's bobbling about. Kebby goes down on the ball again, but referee will probably pull up for that first knock on there. No real advantage as Daryl Shelford tried to unleash the ball there to Brimmer Kebby, and the ball just popping out. So finally we go down to scrum on the Warrington 10-yard mark. Greg Mackey, the scrum half, signed from Hull and one of the mainsprings of this Warrington side, as Kebby came in there, seemed to take a little bit of a knock as he came in on that tackle. Warrington, that's good play by Warrington. Shelford just checking his man there, but Warrington managing to keep this ball alive, but that's good spotting by Neil Summers. The gap had opened up there. So Warrington coming again with the number 11, Gary Sanderson, on that drive, but Roy Powell up to the tackling today. So Warrington back in possession. It's Mann gets the ball to Mackey. Mackey spinning the ball back inside onto Thornley, but Thornley comes into the middle and pulled down on the halfway line as Jim Smith signals the fifth and last tackle for Warrington. Shelford puts a deep kick down into that bottom side, but that ball's bobbling and bouncing on its point and finally runs dead. So tap out to Bradford Northern on the 25. Dave Watson from the tap there as Watson were looking for somebody coming, and Roy Powell looks as though he's got a little bit of an injury as well there as John Hamer driving out, turning his back, looking to offload, but Good tackle there by Paul Cullen. Hobbs straightening up, but Hobbs straight back into the defence there of Cullen and Dwayne Mann. Heron straightening up. Heron made the half break there, got through, led the ball back. The ball still going, it's on the floor, picked up by Tony Marchant, but Marchant finally brought to ground, but Heron had actually made the break there and then decided to flip the ball back as the ball laid back again to Roy Powell. Powell turning his back as three Warrington players very, very quickly surround Big Roy as referee signals the fifth and last tackle again as long ball out to Shelford. Shelford brought down on the halfway line, that's on the sixth tackle. Hand over there as Warrington come away with the ball, but Shelford from the acting half-back pulled his man down. Chambers hands one off. Good running by Chambers, good strong running by Gary Chambers, this big number 8 for Warrington, as Warrington worked the short side with Sanderson. Both Sanderson and Chambers look very, very much alike, both wearing scrum caps. As Mackey lays a good ball back, and that's a good tackle there by Dave Heron. A little bit of a Cumberland throw there, but the tackle very, very effective on the number 12, Neil Harmon. Mackey again on the ball. Mackey with a good and obstruction there. The referee, Jim Smith, spotting that obstruction there. The players went on the dummy run, sucked the cover across as the centre straightened up. So penalty to Bradford Norden, but 15 minutes gone. In this game, it's still Warrington 0, Bradford Norden 0, and both sides. Defence has been on top in this opening quarter of an hour as Dave Watson looking for somebody coming there, but nobody actually coming running. Carl Fairbank on the charge. That's good, strong running by Fairbank. That ball offloaded out, and Marchant there went for the ball, was pushed off the ball. Picked up by Warrington, so Warrington back in possession on the halfway line. Cullen, it's a good tackle by Neil Summers there, coming up on Cullen. Mackey again, the distribution. That's a good tackle there by Sanderson, but well pulled down by Bradford Norden. Player lifted off his feet, and Carl Fairbank back on the park and straight away back into it. That was a good tackle by Fairbank. He went in very, very hard there on Greg Mackey. So Dwayne Mann on the ball now. Mann wrapped up there by Powell, but managing to offload the ball as Warrington come again. It's fifth and last tackle now, signalled by the referee. Shelf the ball out. Is nice little chip over the top, and Roger Simpson, and a try gone begging there for Warrington, but referee spotting that the winger was offside. Roger Simpson just slipping on the turf, that ball bobbling out. The Warrington winger there not able to take it, but Jim Smith pulling them back for an offside, but a little bit of a let off there for Bradford Norden. Nice little chip over the top by Mackey as Summers finds touch on the far side. So Bradford back in possession. Dave Hobbs on the ball. Hobbs into the first tackle, but Norden with Roy Powell. Powell driving at the Warrington defence. Hamer steps inside one, pushes one off, and the ball there. Hamer was looking for somebody in support. Could have been a shout there by the Warrington player, but passed the ball straight to the Warrington player as Gary Tees takes the first drive up now for Warrington. Harmon coming again, big strong runner Neil Harmon, but Dave Watson in there to wrap him up. Mackey once again. Mackey feeds the ball inside as Warrington keep the ball going. Shelford on the ball. Shelford pushes one off, but Shelford still not grounded, but referee saying he was tackled fairly and a penalty given to Bradford Norden. It looked as though Shelford had bounced out of the tackle there, but Jim Smith saying he got up, didn't play the ball. So once again a little bit of a let off to Bradford Norden, and Roy Powell still holding that hand. Looks as though he's got some sort of injury to the hand, but John Hamer. It's a good tackle on Hamer there by Gary Tees. Stopped Hamer in his stride. Carl Fairbank on the ball now. Fairbank looking to brush the man off, but no way through for Fairbank. And Fairbank once again trying to get up and play that ball quickly, and Jim Smith giving the penalty to Bradford Northern for laying on. And Warrington in this last 5 or 6 minutes, the penalty count gone the other way. After 5 minutes it was 3-1 to Warrington, but we're up to 8-3 now in favour of Bradford Northern as David Hobbs takes the first drive over the Warrington halfway line. John Hamer coming in at first man. Hamer taking the drive up, but the tackler's in very, very quickly. Once again, that little switch of a pass there as man went in very, very high there on Roy Powell. So Dave Herring gets a good ball out to Shelford. Shelford just couldn't get out of the clutches there of the standoff. Kebby having a little go on his own. Kebby trying to make a few yards, but no way through as Northern. Neil Summers puts the high ball, the cross kick, into the Warrington half of the field. As Shelford on the ball, got a hand to it, but the ball going back. And Warrington picked the ball up from that as man looking for supporting players. It was Carl Fairbank hanging round his legs there, and Brian Noble and Daryl Shelford just coming in, and straight away another penalty given for offside as Warrington take a quick tap. Dave Herron brings his man down as the crowd shout that Northern weren't 10 yards again on that quick tap the ball as Sanderson drives up to the halfway line, but referees with these new laws, there seem to be more penalties now in the game of rugby league, but slowing the game down. The laws were there to try and speed the play up as Mackey lays the ball back. That's a good ball to Shelford. It's nice little move there, but good spotting by Daryl Shelford on that far side as Warrington come again. Last tackle signal by Jim Smith. So Shelford once again puts the high ball up this time as Roger Simpson and Tony Anderson getting a boot to that ball as the pressure was put on. The big number 4, Tony Thornley, came and put pressure on Roger Simpson. The ball popping out, but Tony Anderson getting back there to hook the ball dead. So the result of that, it's a drop out under the post for Bradford Northern, but Warrington will regain possession from this as Summers gets the ball just 35 yards out as Warrington back in possession on the Bradford 25. Nice little run there from the play the ball by the winger Neil Kenyon, but Chambers brought down just 3 yards from that Bradford Northern try line. It's still Warrington 0, Bradford Northern 0 as Dwayne Mann lays a good ball back to Sanderson, but Sanderson's grounded just a yard short. Mackey with the long ball out, and that's a good try scored there for Warrington. The ball went out wide there, and it looked like Alan Bateman coming in there at pace to open the account for Warrington. We played some 22 minutes in this game, and Bradford Northern go behind. Once again it was Mackey, the long ball out that just broke the defence on the 22nd minute, and just the extra pace there of Bateman took him over the line as the cover got across. So Tony Thornley, the goal kicker for Warrington, strikes the ball, and that's a good goal by Thornley. So 23 minutes gone in this first half. Warrington 6, Bradford Northern 0. Oh, Neil Summers bringing the ball back to the centre spot in a very, very muddy centre of the field there. The field cutting up, a lot of water here at Warrington overnight. There's actually snow on the Pennines as we came across on the team coach this afternoon, but the weather holding that little bit. So Summers to restart the game. That's good kick by Summers. Warrington coming away with the ball. It's Cullen on the ball, but Cullen's well brought down there by Dave Watson. Warrington coming from the acting half back again with the winger Neil Kenyon. Kenyon way off his wing there, but taking that drive in. Carl Fairbank meeting his opposing number 12 there, Neil Harmon. So it's Warrington driving at the middle of this park as Dwayne Mann from the acting half back had a runner inside him in Mackey, but Bradford managing to smother the ball there as fifth and last tackle once again as Shelford pops a good ball into the corner, but once again that ball bouncing on the point, runs dead. So that'll be a tap out on the 25. Brian Noble, the ball onto Shelford, but Shelford's well met there. Good tackle there by Warrington on Shelford. John Hamer working the short side. Brian Noble sells a little dummy. Elects to go on his own from that acting half-back position. Watson spots a gap. Watson straightens up, but Watson hurtled to the ground there, just short of the halfway line as Heron, it's the ball out to Summers. Summers, nice little dummy. It's the ball back to Marchant, but referee saying the ball went back, no knock on. But there again, it's the last tackle now for Bradford Northern as Dave Watson pops the ball over the top, but that's picked up well by Mark Foster. Foster sets off across the park, gets out of the tackle there of Watson, but Summers getting across there well, along with Carl Fairbank as Kenyon again from that acting half-back makes good yardage for Warrington as Tony Anderson signals for his players to come across this short side. Chambers, the big number 8, up to halfway. Oh, 25 minutes gone. That's a good ball by Mackey. Charged down there by Carl Fairbank, but referee going to give the original knock on. It looked as though it was charged down by Carl Fairbank, so let's have a look which way the referee's going to give it. He's given the put in to Bradford Northern, and the Warrington crowd in this stand not very, very happy with the referee's decision. Carl Fairbank knocked that ball down as Mackey tried to bring the man on running. So it'll be Dave Watson feed the scrum for Bradford Northern. Watson playing in the scrum half position as Warrington with the push on, but Watson comes up with the ball safely, gets up to the halfway line. David Hobbs taking the first drive. Hobbs running back into the cover there, looking to lay the ball back, but nobody really coming off the shoulder there for David. Watson in at the first man again. Heron gets a good ball out to Shelford, but referee given a penalty there for crossing, obstruction there as Carl Fairbank went racing through as Watson missed the man out. So another penalty to Warrington on the halfway line as we come up to near the half an hour on this clock. Myler puts the ball safely into touch, makes 10 yards. So Warrington with tees on the drive, but that ball coming out loose, and Roger Simpson back there at the back sweeping up, but Dwayne Mann up very, very quickly there. This hooker for Warrington, this New Zealand hooker, is Dave Heron. Tries to bring the ball away, but brought down again by Dwayne Mann. Brian Noble sells a little dummy, sends Mann the other way, but only makes 5 yards as Northern come again. Watson on to Carl Fairbank, but Fairbank's well spotted there by Gary Chambers. On to Roy Powell. Powell turning his back, but fifth and last tackle now for Bradford Northern. Dave Heron on the ball. Heron gets the ball out to Marchant. Marchant puts the long kick down the field, and a good chase by Marchant, but well taken by Rob Myler, but marches up very, very quickly there and brings his man to ground on the Warrington 25, so Northern need to keep Warrington in that half, and there's a bit of a suicide pass there, but Shelford was up very, very quickly on the man there, but just couldn't get a hold of him. So Warrington coming away again, driving towards the halfway line. Good strong running by the number 12 Neil Harmon, and penalty there against Bradford Northern. Laying on the ball again, looks as though trying to pull the ball out as he was getting up to play that ball, and Northern going to make a substitution. It's Paul Medley coming on the park, Roger Simpson coming off. Marie's just been on to have a look at Roger Simpson, probably a little bit of a dead lead. They look at it the way that Roger's running, and Medley coming on, so Northern will probably drop Neil Summers back to full-back, and Dave Heron coming out to stand off with Medley going into the pack. So Summers at full-back now for Northern as Warrington, fine touch from that free kick. Warrington coming again with Gary Tees up to the 25, and of course with this new 10-yard rule, if the players come running, they're going to make a good 10 yards every time they get the ball for a drive. Warrington with the little switch round. Shelford, that's a good ball by Shelford, and Neil Summers, brilliant tackle by Neil Summers, and a knock on there by Warrington, but what a good tackle by Neil Summers. Virtually picked the big centre up, Tony Thornley, forcing him back, and Summers saved a certain try there for Bradford Northern. That just shows the strength of Neil Summers. Only a small boy, but very, very strong, very good upper body strength as Northern get the ball out of the scrum with Dave Watson. Watson going out towards the wingers. Brimmer Kebby on the ball. Only third touch of the ball for Kebby, but Kebby well brought down there. John Hamer. Hamer on the drive, and Northern just need to contain Warrington in this first half, and Peter Fox will be looking for a big game in the second half. Medley, first touch of the ball as Medley on the charge. Medley getting the handoff going, but good tackle there by Warrington, and of course a very, very slippy surface, so Medley sliding into touch from probably a good 3 or 4 yards out, but Medley with that strong running made good yardage, but down we go to scrum. It'll be Warrington head and ball. And the referee this afternoon is wired for sound, and once again an obstruction there, crossing. That's 3 that Jim Smith pulled the players up for this afternoon. 2 to Warrington, 1 to Bradford Northern. And as I was saying earlier, he's wired for sound by the BBC this afternoon. They're taking this match as Dave Watson takes the quick tap, and that's good yardage made by Dave Watson, making a good 20 yards there into the Warrington half of the field as Roy Powell takes the first drive up again. Powell, Chambers there just hanging round Powell's neck as little dummy shoulders. John Hamer. Hamer offloads the ball to Fairbank. Fairbank looks to knock one off, trying to make the ball available as Brian Noble came flying out of something there, but Northern with Dave Heron. Heron switches the ball to Noble. Noble, little duck, little bob, but just couldn't get away from the Warrington defence there, and Warrington defence very, very good as Dave Watson picks the ball up, lays the ball back inside to Summers. Summers lays it back to Watson again as Watson dancing around, but no way through for Northern. That's the 5th tackle now for Bradford Northern, and Neil Summers hanging back as the ball with David Hobbs as Heron puts the kick into the corner, but that's well plucked out of the air there by Mark Foster, but a good tackle on Foster by Tony Marchant, and a knock on there. That ball knocking on twice there, but referee not seeing it, looking to his touch judge as Dave Heron goes across to have a word with Jim Smith, and finally the touch judge getting the message to Jim Smith that there was a knock on there. There was actually 2 knock-ons. So head and ball to Bradford Northern. Watson gets the ball in, sets off, tells a little dummy, and Anderson was coming through for the return pass there, but Warrington just clamping man and ball as Heron lays the ball to Shelford. Shelford coming back up, but good cover defence by Warrington. Shelford's wrestled to the ground there by Dwayne Mann. Carl Fairbank. Fairbank straightening up, looking to make the ball available, but pulled down just 9 yards short of that Warrington line, and Bradford could do with a score just before half-time. The ball onto Roy Powell, but Powell's well brought down. 5 minutes to go as the ball switched to Fairbank. Fairbank gets the ball to Hamer. Hamer gets out of one tackle, but Hamer finally tackling. That was like a penalty to Bradford Northern for a high tackle. That was a high tackle there on John Hamer. And David Hobbs going to take over the kicking mantle. Bradford lacking a kicker last week, but David Hobbs had that problem with the knee, and that's why he's not been kicking, but deciding to take the kicks himself, because points in a cup tie like this are valuable. Northern just 6 points in arrears, so chance for David Hobbs to open Bradford's account with a penalty goal just on the 10-yard mark, 10-metre mark. Little polish off of the boot there on the back of the stock. Just finds the centre of the post. So with 35 minutes gone, Warrington 6, Bradford Northern 2. I think that's the first tackle, first penalty we've seen this afternoon for the high tackles, compared with the Castleford match last week, when I think in the first quarter of an hour with something like 10, 12 penalties for the high tackle. Jim Smith been a little bit more keen on the 10-yard mark this afternoon, and of course that crossing as Warrington restart the game. Dave Watson gets the ball onto Paul Medley. Medley sets off, but that's a good tackle on Medley by the number 11 Gary Sanderson. Watson on the ball, onto Carl Fairbank. Fairbank straight up. Gets the ball out to Brimmy Kebby, slips the ball out, but Kebby going back into the cover there. Kebby been out some 6 or 7 weeks now, so obviously match fitness is not as good as the training he will have been doing to build himself back up, as Daryl Shelford takes the first drive up there from the acting halfback. Watson props, steps inside, takes the ball short, looks to sell a little dummy, looks for somebody coming, as trying to pop that ball out of the back door, but Warrington managing to smother man and ball. As we're on the last tackle now, as David Hobbs drives the ball into the Warrington half of the field, but Rob Myler well back on that ball, as Dave Heron there, but the player there just ducking under the arm as Dave Heron looked to try and get the man, but good spotting there by Tony Marchant, bringing Shelford down. Was it Shelford? Oh, it was Shelford, as Kenyon gets rid of the ball to Cullen, but Roy Powell in there to tidy things up. Foster from the acting halfback takes the first drive. Harmon up to the halfway line, but once again it's the last tackle signal by the referees. The ball goes back to Shelford, as Shelford drives that ball along the ground, and Kebby just takes his time, picks the ball up safely. Tried to go between the two then, and a little bit of a tackle round the neck there, but Neil Summers from the acting halfback, but Summers is well spotted there by Bateman, the number 3, as Shelford and Bradford a little bit stuck on that 10-yard mark, as David Hobbs gets the ball onto John Hamer. Hamer drives up to the 25, but Northern now with 4 tackles gone, as Heron steps inside. That's good running by Dave Heron, but a good cover tackle there on Dave Heron as the gap was opened up, as Summers puts the kick into the Warrington half. That's well taken there by Rob Myler, as Myler sets off, and a good tackle there on Myler by Brian Noble. Brings him to ground, but Warrington coming again with Kenyon, the winger. Kenyon got out of the tackle there of David Hobbs, but John Hamer just pulled him to ground. As Medley on the tackle now. That's a good tackle on Gary Chambers. Mackey on the ball again. Mackey switching the ball across. Shelford gets the ball. That's a good ball, and a good tackle there by Dave Watson. The gap had opened up there. It was Dave Heron actually on that tackle. Heron getting across for the cover tackling, and once again Heron there helping Kebby bring the Warrington attackers down on the 5 yards, and that was the 6th tackle as Bradford Northern fall on that tackle. Carl Fairbank picked the ball up as Dave Watson comes away again. Watson props, looks to try and get out of the tackle there, but wrapped up by his opposing number 6 Shelford, as just a couple of minutes to half time as David Hobbs takes that drive up. It's still Warrington 6, Bradford Northern 2. Fairbank on the drive, turning his back, looking to offload, pops the ball out the back doors. Dave Hobbs gets the ball over the top to Paul Medley. Medley, but a good tackle on Medley when Northern had that little bit of an overlap on this side. Summers puts the ball over the top again, but Rob Myler well back on that as Myler gets away from one, but Carl Fairbank coming with a crunching second tackle there on the Warrington fullback. Tees takes the drive up, makes yardage up towards the halfway line for Warrington. Harmon coming again. Harmon had a good, strong running game in this first half. Warrington working the short side with Mann. Mann gets the ball inside as Kenyon steps out of one, but good tackle there by Brian Noble. And looks like he's pulled a hamstring there. It was Bateman, the centres. That ball goes over the top to Shelford. Shelford hands off his namesake, and Shelford offloading that ball. The ball going straight into touch as the winger couldn't get to the ball, but 40 minutes gone on the clock in this first half, but we had that lengthy stoppage. After 5 minutes of this game, the injury to the Warrington fullback. The rain starts to come down here as Northern gets the ball into the scrum with Dave Watson as Watson looked to sell a little dummy there, trying to prize a gap. Summers, the ball back inside to Shelford, but Shelford going straight back into the Warrington coming across. And penalty, Warrington caught all offside on the halfway line, and Jim Smith had a straight line there as Northern take the quick tap again with Cal Fairbank. Fairbank gets a good ball out to Medley, inside to Marchant, but that would have been better coming on the outside really there. Anderson had the better running chances. Northern come with John Hamer. Hamer takes that first drive up. Watson on the ball now. Watson dancing about. It's the ball out to Heron, but Heron's well spotted there. Roy Powell. Powell just doing a little jiggling act again there. Powell tries to brush off the tackles there. Brian Noble from the acting halfback. The ball on to Watson. Out to Hobbs. Hobbs gets the ball to Medley. Medley on the charge. Poor Medley, but Medley brought down on the 10-yard mark. The last tackle now. Tony Marchant sells the dummy. Little chip over the top. And Marchant gets to the ball, but Warrington just fall on that ball. And finally pulled down, but a good little kick by Marchant. It looked as though he'd got over the top to get a hand on that ball. Good thinking by Marchant on the sixth tackle. So that's a drop out under the post to Warrington, and injury time being played here in this first half. And of course Warrington just taking the time. David Hobbs there just signalling to the referee that they're wasting time, wants the clock stopping. Hobbs obviously knows it's coming up to, and Medley a little bit lax there, trying to trap that ball. It looked a bit of a flapper of a dropout as Tony Anderson takes the first drive up. Watson on the ball now, gets the ball to Medley. Medley, a little bit of an explosive burst there, but well spotted by Warrington as David Hobbs brings the ball on the short side. Gets the ball inside to Cal Fairbank, but good tackle on Fairbank there on the 25, but Jim Smith giving a penalty. So that penalty will have to stop. It was right on the hooter. Cal Fairbank was held down on the halfway line, on the tackle there. And Jim Smith giving the penalty there. And a chance for David Hobbs right on that half-time hooter to add a further 2 points for Bradford Northern. Referee there just blowing the whistle right as the hooter sounded, so the penalty has got to stand, and a chance for Dave Hobbs to reduce the arrears by a further 2 points. And one or two of the players had gone off the part, and they were called back onto the field. Obviously wanted to get into the warmth of the dressing room as the rain starts to come down here at Wilderspool. And a little bit of controversy there on the half-time hooters. The boos go up around this Wilderspool Stadium. Dave Hobbs strikes the ball and pulls the ball across the face of the post there. So the chance really gone begging for Bradford Northern. Half-time, it's Warrington 6, Bradford Northern 2. Well, Bradford back out in the park now for this second half, and one or two new clean shirts, obviously because the BBC are here today. And no substitutions for either side during that half-time interval, so Bradford Northern just at 4 points adrift. As Neil Summers gets the second half underway, the kick out then, Mackie just trying to trap the ball as the ball popped through. It's the ball onto Kenyon, but Roy Powell in very, very quickly there on Kenyon. Brings him to ground as Warrington come charging out up to their own 25. And nice to hear the Bradford spectators getting behind the team. Gary Chambers taking that drive up, but it's Roy Powell in again on the tackle. The ball laid off nicely there by Mackie, bringing tees onto the drivers. That's a good tackle by Daryl Shelford, sliding about in that mud as the deep kick goes over the top. Neil Summers just watching that ball, letting it bounce. Summers going into the full-back position. Roger Simpson going off at just before half-time. So Brian Noble from the acting half-back, but good tackle there on Noble. Anderson on the ball. Anderson gets out of one, but the Warrington cover coming across very, very quickly. Watson gets the ball to John Hamer. Hamer steps out of one, but three Warrington players coming up very, very quickly there on John Hamer. Heron, Dave Heron on the ball, gets the ball out to Medley. Medley beats one, gets the handoff going. Medley up to the halfway line, but it's the last tackle now for Bradford Northern. A penalty there, lying on at the play of the ball as Medley trying to get up and play that ball. So another penalty to Bradford Northern for laying on. So Neil Summers to work the ball further into the Warrington half. That finds touch on the 25, so Northern now with 6 more tackles to try and reduce these arrears in the opening minutes of this first half as David Hobbs puts his head down. Roy Powell. Powell steps off of one, steps out of one tackle. Powell drives up towards the 10-yard line. John Hamer. Hamer driving in, Hamer turning his back, looking for support, but he stopped just 2 or 3 yards short as Northern with Heron. Heron sells the dummy. Tried to step inside, but there was nobody coming for that reverse passes. Dave Watson. Watson looking to spin, dance round, but 3-4 Warrington players wrap him up, and that's the last tackle now for Bradford Northern as Hobbs gets the ball through to Kebby, but referee right on the spot there saw the forward pass from David Hobbs. Kebby burst through that gap there. It was a little delayed pass there by David Hobbs. So it's the handover to Warrington as Warrington looks to come away up the short side with Dwayne Mann, but he's grounded there by Daryl Shelford. Harmon goes down under the tackle there of the Bradford defences. Chambers gets the ball out to Shelford. Shelford, but a good tackle there on Shelford by Dave Heron. Heron, good cover tackling, getting across the park as Sanderson driving, trying to stride his way through the Bradford defence, but big Roy Powell there again as Mackie gets the ball out this time to Sanderson, but Sanderson goes down in that very, very muddy patch. It's the last tackle now for Warrington. Shelford drives a good ball in, and Tony Anderson just lets that ball go into touch on the Northern 25, but that'll be head and ball to Bradford Northern. So down we go to scrum. It's Bradford just taking the time, going across there as the pack goes down. Dave Watson gets the ball out. Watson sets off on his own, bounces out of one, but Finally brought down there by Thornley as Heron. It's the ball on to Marchant. Marchant straightens up. Elects to go down the middle, but very, very sticky and gluey. In the middle of the park is John Hamer. Good drive by John Hamer. Upright running by Hamer. Knocked a Warrington player off. Watson switches the ball inside to Fairbank. Fairbank trying to get the handoff going, but Fairbank still offloads the ball to Marchant. Marchant to Watson. Watson straightening up, but Watson straight back into the defence there. Bigoo went up from the Bradford contingent, looking for a high tackle there as Dave Hobbs gets the ball out to Medley. Medley on the charge again, but Medley's well policed this time as the ref signals the last tackle now for Bradford Northern as David Hobbs, and that ball charged down there. Watson back, picks the ball up well, gets the ball out to Neil Summers. Summers straightens up. Nice check inside by Neil Summers. That's good running by Neil Summers, so it's back to 6 now for Bradford Northerners. Once again, the Warrington. Roy Powell on the ball. Powell spinning round as that ball was laid back there by Carl Fairbank, but good spotting there by Gary Tees for Warrington. Northern with John Hamer. Hamer driving up, but offloaded the ball there to Brian Noble, but Noble well spotted as Fairbank. It's the ball on to Roy Powell. Powell straightens up to the 25. Quick play the ball by Roy Powell. Tony Marchant sets off, pins his ears back, gets out of 1, gets out of 2. That's good yardage there made by Tony Marchant, but once again, Northern on the last tacklers. The ball out to Medley. Medley just couldn't get the ball out there to Anderson. That was a good cover tackle, but that's the handover. Northern on the 6th tackle there, looking to work the ball out wide as Medley in very, very quickly there. On the number 12, Neil Harmon. Harmon's thrown to the ground on that 10-yard mark. And Warrington dropping the ball there. It's picked up by Paul Medley. Medley gets out of 1, spins round, out of 2. Bradford back on the attack now with 6 more tackles. The wide ball needed here by Bradford Northern, but Dave Heron just checked as Summers gets the ball out. Gives the ball to Kebby. Kebby looking to go round the outside, but a good tackle there on Kebby. That ball could have done with Kebby. Play the ball to himself, but loses it at the 2nd attempt. So a chance for Bradford Northern there. Gone begging. Bad mistake there by Brummer Kebby. Shelford in on the tack. The ball forced out again, so Bradford back in possession. Warrington losing the ball at vital times here as Northern come again with Watson out to Heron. Gets the ball onto Medley, but Medley puts the ball down as the game starting to warm up. The tempo picking up in this second half. Fine drizzly rain starts to come down here again at Wilderspool, making that ball a little bit slippy, but Northern had the opportunity there to reduce the arrears. So Warrington feed the ball into the scrum. Comes out with the winger, Thornley coming in. Mark Foster coming in off the wing. Warrington in possession, but good tackling there by Neil Summers, wrapping his man up as Marchant on Cullen. Marchant brings Cullen down on the 25, and that ball not played there by Cullen as the tackling, Northern's tackling in very, very quickly. Greg Mackey, it's the ball out to Sanderson. Sanderson lays the ball back to Mackey. Mackey, a good tackle there as Mackey offloaded the ball on the inside, 6th tackle. Warrington still in their own half of the field as the ball with Kelly Shelford just trying to pop that ball through, but that ball well smothered there by the Bradford defence. It was David Hobbs going down on that ball as the ball now with Dave Watson. Watson straightening up, trying to burst the tackle. Gets up to the halfway line. John Hamer taking the drive up as the rain comes down. John Hamer in the clear. Hamer looking for the support. Gets the ball to Anderson, but Anderson just couldn't offload that ball there to Tony Marchant as Northern come again with Dave Watson. Watson on to Heron. Heron straightening up under the post. Northern just 10 yards from that Warrington try line now. Watson. It's the ball to John Hamer, but Hamer losing the ball there. Watson just delaying the pass, and Hamer took a hard tackle there as that ball popped out. So Warrington come away with the ball again. Warrington up to their own 25. Daryl Shelford once again in on the tackle there from acting halfback, pulling the Warrington players down. Shelford, but a good tackle on Shelford there by Paul Medley. Warrington pinning them in their own half as Mackey gets the ball out. Mackey, good ball out by Mackey. It's the ball inside to Kenyon. Kenyon's well swept up there by Dave Heron. It's the last tackle once again for Warrington as the ball with Mackey, as Mackey with a nice angle kick. That saves his forwards, a lot of work. Finds touch on the 25, but that'll be head and ball to Bradford Northern. So the game in this second half set off at 100 mile an hour. We're some 10 minutes into this second half as Dave Watson gets the ball into the scrum for Bradford, out with Dave Heron. Heron flips the ball inside to Kebby, but Kebby's well spotted there and wrapped up. Dave Watson from the acting half back. Watson's picked up by the legs there. That was a good tackle by Gary Tees. And Shelford straightening up. Good yardage made there by Daryl Shelford, as Shelford looking to get up and play the ball quickly. Carl Fairbank, but three Warrington players very, very quickly there round Fairbank. David Hobbs on the ball. The long ball out to Marchant. Marchant puts the kick in. That's over the top, and that'll find touch inside the Warrington half. Looked as though it touched the Warrington player, but touch judge signalling it's the put in to Warrington on their own 10-yard mark. And Trevor Clark coming onto the park. It looks like Brian Noble coming off. Nobby had a big tackling game in this first half. But of course, with that little bit of an eye injury that Nobby had last week, Peter Frock's going to bring a pair of fresh legs on in Trevor Clark, and of course Clark can go into that hooking position. And Nobby just asking the question there of Stevie, why he's been brought off as Clark goes into the hooking position. Northern with the push on there, but Jim Smith decided the ball will be back into the scrum again. Possession for Warrington as Warrington looked to come away, but Dave Heron once again very, very quickly breaking out of that pack to cover. Medley, a good tackle there by Paul Medley on Gary Sanderson. Warrington working the short side as Harmon gets the ball onto Cullen. Cullen head down, but he's wrapped up there by Dave Watson. Warrington coming again with the big runners. That's a good run there. Good charging run by the big number 8, Gary Chambers. Had a good game this afternoon, but Roy Powell there just bringing his man down. 4 tackles gone now for Warrington as Mackey looks to put the kick over the top. That's angled over the top of Kebby. Just a little bit too strong. That ball goes into touch, so it'll be head and ball to Bradford Northern. But of course Warrington keeping Northern penned in their own half of the field with that kick. So down we go to scrum on the 10-yard mark. Watson, it's the ball in. It came out at the second attempt as Watson's wrapped up there by 3-4 Warrington players. Second row pairing out very, very quickly. Heron on the ball. Dave Heron straightening up, but couldn't get through the gap there. He got Neil Summers on his shoulder. John Hamer. Hamer's well brought down. Clark, little dart down the blind side, but once again a good tackle there by Tony Thornley on Trevor Clark as Northern with Roy Powell. Powell on the charge, but no way through there for Roy Powell as the 5th and last tackle signalled by referee Jim Smith. The ball's back to Neil Summers. Summers puts a good long kick into the Warrington half of the field as Rob Myler goes back on that ball, but Bradford with the chasers up, and that's a good tackle there by Tony Marchant on Rob Myler. As Warrington come away with the ball again with Mark Foster, but Marchant once again in on the tackle Dwayne Mann from the acting halfback. Puts the head down, but he's collared there by John Hamer. Warrington with Sanderson. Driving up towards the halfway line. Dwayne Mann gets out of the tackle there off Fairbank. Mackey lays a nice little ball off to Gary Tees, but 5 tackles gone now for Warrington. Shelford puts the little chip over the top. That's a good little ball over the top, but Warrington still keeping the ball alive. Still on the 6 tacklers. Mackey lifts the high ball, the high bomb as Neil Summers goes in, takes the ball, but Warrington regain possession, so it's 6 more tackles for Warrington. Bradford under pressure now as Shelford gets the ball out, gives the ball to Myler. Myler straightening up. Good running there by the Warrington fullback Rob Myler. Quick play the ball back. That's knocked down there by Bradford Northern. Warrington supporters shouting back to 1 as that's a good tackle there by Carl Fairbank, and Bradford get the ball there from that splendid tackle there. So Northern come away with the ball. Fairbank on the ball now. Fairbank plays the ball to himself. Makes a valuable 10, 15 yards there as Warrington try to pick him up. Powell on the charge, but Powell drops the ball there. Picked up at the second attempt there by Dave Watson, and referee there going back for the original knock on. Still Warrington 2. Not a classic game, but it's been a hard game, and if Bradford can come back in the last quarter of the game like they did against Castleford. So Gary Tees coming off the park, and Paul Derbyshire, the substitute for Warrington. Had a good game. That's Tees, and that's a good ball to Cullen, but a good tackle there on Cullen by Neil Summers. As Warrington come again with the big forwards charging. They're up to the 10-yard mark. Bradford on. Shelford straightening up, going towards the post, but John Hamer there brings his man to ground. Warrington with the little run round, and Northern defence just keeping on top, but Mackey with the long ball out to Shelford. That's a good tackle there on Shelford by David Hobbs. The gap was opening up for Shelford. Drop goal attempt. It's charged down by Roy Powell. Warrington back in possession with Rob Myler. Myler goes across the park. Finally brought to ground, but referee signals back to 6 tackles. Roy Powell felt the full force of that ball as it was charged down as Derbyshire. First charge of the ball. Pressure still on Bradford Northern. The runners coming in, but once again, good spotting by Bradford Northern. Northern under a lot of pressures. Mackey sells the little dummy. The ball pops over the top, and that's well taken there by Tony Marchant as Northern come away with Tony Anderson. Anderson makes good yardage there, away from his own 25. Watson going down the short side, sells the little dummy. Finally wrapped up, but good yardage made there by Dave Watson. Northern coming away from that danger. Heron gets the ball onto Medley, but Medley's wrapped up. Trevor Clark from the acting halfback gets the ball to Roy Powell, but Powell nowhere through there. 5th tackle once again for Bradford Northern as Dave Watson puts the ball over the top. That ball bobbling, but well taken there by Mark Foster. Northern with the chasers up, and Medley stops Foster there in his tracks. Medley once again, but this time Warrington managing to get the ball out to Neil Kenyon. Warrington working the short side. Cullen there looking for somebody, but the centre winger had gone out of position. Mackey on the ball again. Out to Shelford. Cullen in possession there, but well tackled as Warrington once again go up the short side. Shelford knocks one off, gets the ball inside, and a good tackle, good cover tackle there. It's last tackle signalled, and once again the high ball up. Neil Summers took that ball, it bounced once and took the ball very, very well as the pressure was on by the Warrington chasers, Dave Watson, but Watson's well brought down there by Alan Bateman. Kebby on the ball, it's the ball to John Hamer. Hamer burst one, but just couldn't get away there from the tackle of Paul Derbyshire, the substitute. Dave Heron straightens up. Heron beats one, but finally goes down on that halfway line. Roy Powell on the ball again. Powell, little stop-start. Penalty to Bradford Northern there, pulling the ball out. Northern were on the last tackle there, and Jim Smith in very, very quickly to spot that ball had been pulled out, and it's Greg Mackey receiving attention. Probably a little bit of mud because there's a very, very wet patch in the middle of this Wilderspool Stadium. And Mackey just having his eye washed out there by the Warrington physio. Still Warrington 6, Bradford Northern 2. And Daryl Shelford just going across there. He's had a little bit of and that ball not finding touch. The ball flipped back there by the winner, so bad mistake by Bradford Northern from that penalty. And that's good strong running by Warrington to bring the ball out of defence. And once again, Roy Powell's down injured. Warrington keeping this ball alive, but Carl Fairbank onto the ball. Northern with a chance now. Straightening up, gets the ball onto Medley. Medley out of one, gets the ball to Marchant, but Marchant just couldn't loose that ball then. Northern had the overlap there, but the ball just didn't come out quick enough as Northern come across with Hobbs, onto Shelford. Shelford bursts one, gets through the gap, spins round, but Brimmer Kebby there just obstructed a little bit as Northern. Heron onto David Hobbs. Hobbs straightening up, lays the ball back. John Hamer. Hamer driving for the line, but Hamer's held up just a yard short of that Warrington try line. Northern with Watson dancing about. Watson straightens up, but once again back into the cover there. Northern need the long ball out as Dave Heron, that ball goes back behind him, swept up by Roy Powell, and this time Warrington on the ball. Chance for Bradford Northern gone begging again as Warrington come up for the ball. A little dive over the top. Shelford brings his namesake down, Kelly Shelford. And Brimmer Kebby there, pull for offside. Warrington take the quick tap. So Warrington with 6 more tilts at Bradford Northern as once again the big strong runners for Warrington come. Warrington again with Sanderson. Sanderson makes a good valuable 10 yards as Warrington work the way back into the Bradford half. Mackey on the ball now. Mackey looks for the little gap, but well spotted there by Trevor Clark. Good tackle on Harmon there by Trevor Clark as Harmon looked to be getting away from Clark. Warrington come again, the little chip through. Kebby going down safely on the ball, touching the ball down, but that'll be a drop out underneath the post. The pressure put on Bradford Northern again. So it's a drop out underneath the post, and referee just stopping the game there. Gary Tees coming back on the park to replace Neil Harmon. So Summers to restart the game. That's a good long drop out by Neil Summers up over halfway, but Warrington back with the ball there with number 5 Mark Foster. Foster's pulled down there by Marchant on that far side. Warrington coming again with the good runners. Sanderson had a big, strong running game this afternoon for Warrington. Derbyshire on the ball now. So it's Warrington with Shelford. Shelford just drops the ball off there, but Warrington straightening up towards the post. Mackey with the ball out, and it's a good running, and a try for Warrington, a well-deserved try there. It looked like Gary Sanderson. The ball was switched about. One of the players with the scrum cap on, it was either Sanderson or Harmon, but looks like Sanderson that's been awarded the try. And all the pressure there, it was Sanderson who scored. The pressure on Bradford Northern. So Warrington extend the lead by a further 4 points. It's Warrington 10, Bradford Northern 2. So Tony Thornley, the goal kicker. That good try there coming all by Mackey, just switching the ball and the long ball out, and Sanderson, who's had a big running game for Warrington this afternoon, well deserves a try as Thornley finds the centre of the post, so rubs a little bit more salt into the wound. It's Warrington 12, Bradford Northern 2, and Northern 10 points adrift now. So a big last quarter of this game needed now by Bradford Northern. Neil Summers to restart from the centre spot. Summers gets the ball up into the air, but well taken by Mackey, who gets the ball onto Cullen as Cullen sets off up the park, but good tackle by Trevor Clark on Cullen. Derbyshire takes the first tilt at the Bradford defence as Warrington a little bit more step and spring in the heels now, as that's a good tackle on Tees on the halfway line. Sanderson, good running by Sanderson again, making good yardage up the park. So Warrington back in the Bradford half. Mackey gets the ball back inside. Sanderson's brought down, but it's the last tackle now for Warrington. Shelford once again hoists the high ball as Neil Summers goes in. That ball bounced over the top, but referee there given an offside decision. That ball looked as though it bounced off one of the Bradford players as the Warrington chasers were up there, but the player that took the ball, as it was basketball style, over the top, the penalty given to Bradford Northern. So David Hobbs to slot the ball into touch. So Trevor Clark from the tap, it's the ball to David Hobbs as Hobbs turns his back, goes into the Warrington defenders. Dave Watson. Watson straightens up, but Watson not being able to find the gaps. The surface here very, very sticky and greasy. As Dave Heron. Heron up to the halfway line, but he's thrown to the ground on halfway. Roy Powell. Powell on the drive, but Warrington tacklers been up to the game this afternoon, kept Northern at base. Carl Fairbank sets off. Fairbank brushes one off, gets a good ball back to Watson. On to Trevor Clark, but Clark just losing his footing there as the fifth tackle signal by the referee. Heron gets the ball. Shelford puts the ball through, dribbles it through, and that ball's still loose, but Kenyon managing just to fall on that ball at the last minute. Shelford there looking to drive his man. Shelford over the try line, but Shelford just evading the tackle there of Daryl Shelford as Warrington set off across the park with Mark Foster. Warrington coming from the acting half-back, just making the 5-10 yards, and Warrington utilised this new 10-yard rule a lot better than Bradford Northern this afternoon. The runners have been coming through, but that's the fifth tackle signalled again by referee Jim Smith of Halifax. The ball back to Mackey as Mackey puts the ball over the top. Summers picks the ball up, gets away from one. That's good running by Summers. Summers straightening up across the park. Good strong running by Neil Summers, but finally falls to the tackle there of the Warrington defence. Roy Powell on the charge again, but Powell up to the halfway line. He's brought to ground. Watson on the ball, gets the ball to Heron. Heron out to Hobb. That's a good ball by Carl Fairbank to Daddle Shelford, but Shelford just electing to come inside. And Chambers and Derbyshire come across there as Dave Heron. Heron, long ball out to Medley. Medley, a chance to get running. Medley hands one off, hands to... It's a ball to Anderson. Tony Anderson in the clear. Anderson elects to kick. And a chase by Anderson and a try for Bradford Northern by Tony Anderson. The little chip through. It looked as though Warrington had the ball covered, but Tony Anderson managing to get a hand on that ball. Gets the try back for Bradford Northern. So about 10 minutes to go in this game. Bradford Northern up to 6 points now. It's Warrington 12, Bradford Northern 6. David Hobbs with the conversion attempt. And are we going to see a comeback like Bradford Northern did in that Castleford game last week? 26-0 down, and Northern running out losers by 30 points to 20. But 4 tries within the space of 5 minutes last Sunday at Castleford. Can Northern do it again to go through into the next round of the Regal Trophy? Now David Hobbs on the far side, on the 25-yard line. Quick look up at the post as Hobbs comes up now, strikes the ball, and that finds the centre of the post. So a good conversion there by David Hobbs. That brings the game back down to within 4 points. It's one score for Bradford Northern to get level. And Warrington this time, the ones who are wasting the time, bringing the ball back. Dwayne Mann gives the ball to Kelly Shelford. Straight away, referee Jim Smith stops the clock there for time wasting. Just 4 points the difference now, as referee there just telling the Warrington captain, Paul Cullen, he stopped the clock for time wasting. So Kelly Shelford to restart the game as Jim Smith wipes the clock back to start, as the ball with Carl Fairbank. Fairbank on the drive. Good solid driving out there by Carl Fairbank. Fairbank wanting to get up and play the ball quickly as John Hamer takes the first tip up, and Northern coming now with the forwards again, but feel sure if the ball was moved out wide they could beat this Warrington outfit this afternoon. Northern just been sucked into the middle of the game as the chant goes up again. Northern. Paul Medley on the ball now. Medley trying to get out of the tackle, but good spotting there by the Warrington defence as Dave Watson sets off. Now Trevor Clark it was. It looked very much like Dave Watson then, as this time it's Watson putting a good ball over the top into the Warrington box as the chasers come up. And that's good running there. Good running by Myler, the fullback. Brings that ball out well. Makes valuable yardage as the chasers were up. Gary Tees on the ball again, but Tees well tackled there by John Hamer. So Warrington come again, as looks like Greg Mackey that's gone off, and Kevin Ellis coming onto the field. Ellis played down in Wales last week. It's Alan Bateman who's gone off the park, and Ellis coming on as Warrington back in possession, back into the Bradford half of the field. Warrington working the short side. Dwayne Mann just spins out of the tackle there of Roy Powell. But once again, it's the last tackle signal for Warrington, and the bomb will go up again. Shelford straightening up. Shelford selling the little dummy, but well swept up at the back there by Neil Summers, as Summers brings the ball away. Summers looking to get out of the tackle there, but finally brought to ground on the 25. But that ball was picked up well by Neil Summers at the back, as Northern with Paul Medley, but Medley not able to get round his man. Quick play the ball. Trevor Clark on the ball now, as Clark straightens up, but good tackle there by number 10 Gary Tees, and referee looks like it's going to be a blood bin for somebody injured there. Gary Tees, is it, that's coming off? He's showing that white card, which is the blood bin card. There's blood streaming from his nose. Harmon comes back on the park. It's Paul Cullen that's got the blood streaming from the nose as Norden come on the drive again with John Hamer. Fairbank from the acting halfback looking to hand off, but Fairbank's hauled to the ground as Dave Watson once again props, straightens up. Little ball put over the top there. Roy Powell hacks the ball on. It's a chase between Shelford as the fullback goes back down on it, and he's tackled over the try line, but referee not give it. Looks as though he was pushed over the line as Shelford, and this time Warrington pinned down on their own try line. Norden need to keep the pressure on. Norden looking to drive back as 3 or 4 players come in. Warrington still on that try line. No yardage made and 3 tackles gone as Warrington this time straight from the acting half. That's a good strong run there. Good relieving run, taking the pressure off of Warrington. As Warrington coming again. Bradford a little bit at 6 and out to Ellis. Ellis in the clear. Little sidestep by Ellis, but a good tackle by Neil Summers. Last tackle once again for Warrington as Mackey on the ball. Mackey gets the ball out. The ball laid back but picked up there by Bradford Northern. That ball flipped back and Norden with Tony Marchant get the ball as Tony Anderson from the acting halfback. So Bradford back in possession, but danger there for Bradford Norden as Warrington broke out of their own 25. Good strong running. David Hobbs on the ball. Hobbs hands one off, turns his back, looking to offload, but nobody coming for that ball as Hobbs has finally thrown to the ground. It's still just that 4 points difference. Dave Heron straightens up. Heron gets the ball inside. Ball kept alive. Summers on the charge. Summers beats one. Gets out of 2. Summers going at the full-back. Tony Marchant with him, but finally brought down. It's the last tackle now for Bradford Northern. Marchant gets the ball away. Kebby on the ball. Kebby gets the ball back inside. Picked up by Shelford's going to score for Bradford Northern. That ball kept alive on the 6th tackle, and Daryl Shelford scores a try for Northern. That levels the score at 12-all. We make it about 3 minutes left on the clock, so David Hobbs, an important kick here at goal for Northern. It's Warrington 12, Bradford Northern 12, as Northern kept that ball alive on that 6th tackle. Ball going to ground, but picked up very, very well by Daryl Shelford. And Shelford plonked the ball down with that little bit of extra reach to level the scores at Warrington 12, Bradford Northern 12. So David Hobbs, similar kick to the last one, and an important kick for David Hobbs. Chance to put Bradford into the lead, but might we see a replay at Odsal in midweek? 12-all in this Regal Trophy match. And of course, the winners go through to the quarter-finals. So David Hobbs, as the din goes up from the Warrington end. But David's seen all this before. Good kicker under pressure. So Hobbs just takes his time, strikes the ball, and just pulls to the left-hand side of the upright. So Warrington 12, Bradford Northern 12. Couple of minutes to go on the clock here at Wilderspool. And what an exciting finish to this game. It's been a super game of rugby league. A credit to both sides this afternoon, played in very, very heavy, atrocious conditions, but the handling been superb. So just announced over the tannoy, it's a week on Wednesday at Odsal, So Norton on the ball. Carl Fairbank looking to drive out of his own 25, but Kevin Ellis there wraps him up. 12 all. Brimmer Kebby on the ball. Kebby looking to duck under. Kebby makes valuable yardage. John Hamer takes the driver. Hamer driving, but Hamer's well spotted. 3 tackles gone now for Bradford Northerners. Dave Watson on the ball. Gets the ball up. Out to Paul Medley. Medley on the charge. Up to the halfway line, but Medley's hauled down. Roy Powell. Powell checking the drive up again, but that's 5 tackles gone now for Bradford Northern, so the kick needs to be into the corners. David Hobbs drills the ball over the top, but only straight at Kevin Ellis, so it's Warrington back in possession. Ellis plays the ball, gets the ball onto Gary Tees. Tees is brought down, but Warrington still in their own half of the field. Warrington will probably drive this ball up to the Northern half of the field and a drop goal attempt. Mackey on the ball, but a good tackle there by Roy Powell on Greg Mackey. Number 11 Sanderson. Sanderson brought down. Warrington working the way near us. Shelford tries the drop goal, but that ball flaps low. Picked up by Neil Summers as Summers sets off. Northern with 6 more tackles now to keep this ball. We make it 40 minutes gone on the clock as Dave Watson dancing, spinning about, but no way through. Hamer on the outside. Hamer looks to get the ball out, but Tony Anderson out of a little bit of position there, so it's Watson on the ball again. Gives the ball to Fairbank. Fairbank dips the shoulder as the final hooter goes here from Wilderspool. Terrific game of rugby league this afternoon, played in atrocious conditions. And very, very quickly, Steve, how did you read the game this afternoon?
I think we made mistakes, but at least we've got a draw, come back well. Come back in the last 20 minutes again.
So the replay back at Odsal a week on Wednesday, and obviously are you going to be fit for it? It's a bit of a shoulder problem you've got at the moment.
I should be fit, yeah, and let's hope we can turn tables.
All right, Steve. Well, there we go, the match at Wilderspool this afternoon. A good game, and that replay at Odsal a week on Wednesday. Well, the stats this afternoon. The penalties, handling errors, it was 15 to Warrington and 10 to Bradford Northern. Scrums, Bradford Northern won 5, Warrington won 4, so not many scrums this afternoon. Penalties conceded, Warrington's conceded a massive 13 penalties, Bradford Northern only 6. So, final score here from Wilderspool, Warrington 12, Bradford Northern 12, the replay at Odsal Stadium a week on Wednesday.